Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Devedi, and in this segment we bring to you how coronavirus has reached the final continent of the earth, that is Antarctica. This topic is important from the perspective of prelims, and let's look at the topics that we are going to discuss step by step. First of all, we will talk about why news, then we will know about Antarctica, then we will talk about India in Antarctica, in the sense, when did we begin with our expedition and the stationing. We will talk about, does India really need to be concerned at the backdrop of a new strain developing in the Britain region as well as this particular new outbreak. We will talk about steps needed to stop the outbreak, this particular outbreak related to the Antarctic region. And in the midst of the segment, I'm going to ask you a pre-based question. You have to comment the correct answer in the comment segment. So let's begin with why news. Because the novel coronavirus, after causing a lot of disruption throughout the year 2020 around the globe, has finally infiltrated the seventh and the last continent of the world, that is the Antarctic. So if we talk about the timeline of the events, how did this all happen? So let's look at the timeline. The infected people, they were stationed at the General Bernardo O'Higgins realm that is located on the northernmost tip of Antarctica, that is facing the Chilean coast. Now, Chilean coast, in the sense, the infected people, they were found at the military base of the Chile army and also the naval ship. So what happened? In this station, a total of 36 confirmed COVID cases have been detected. And after that, what was the timeline? On November 27th, a supply vessel named Sargento All-Day ship, now it arrived at this particular research station for supplies. Of course, the people, they need supplies. And that particular ship, it began its return journey on December 10th, but while sailing back, 3 out of 208 people who were on board that ship were found to be positive for the COVID-19 virus. And also, since then, at least 21 cases have been reported on the ship. So it's rising. Now, what is happening? The individuals that have been tested positive have been evacuated and they are currently being quarantined at the Magallanes, Chile region. So you have to remember the names, in the sense it could be asked in the prelims. You have to be very careful with the geography of that place as well. Alright. Apart from being the closest habitable area from Antarctic and the point from where the ships travel to the remote Antarctic area, this particular area has been the most hard-hit region due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Right? So all this happened like that. Now we talk about Antarctica. Now Antarctica is nothing like the rest of the earth. In the sense, it can be compared to the surface of the moon. And if we talk about its discovery, it is the only continent that was discovered in the real sense. Why? Because there was no native population that was living before the discovery. And there is still no permanent population. The people from the rest of the part of the world, they go and station there for scientific research, right? So if we talk about, let's go back to the 1700s. When from 1772 to 1775, a British explorer by the name of Sir James Cook, he was circumnavigating the entire region and he found out certain outer islands of Antarctica. And he also said that this particular region was very rich in minerals as well as wildlife. After that, hunters and explorers from Britain as well as the US were intrigued and fascinated by the bounties, by the economic bounties, and then they started hunting the fur seals and the elephant seals to their extinction in the following decades. So that's how extinction happened over there. And many explorers, many scholars were fascinated by the fact, why did the exploration happen there at the first place? Many of the explorers were fascinated by the fact that there has to be a counterweight to the Arctic, the northern region, that is the Terra Australis. The southern region should be there. So many of them were fascinated and intrigued. Many of them were intrigued in the sense they wanted to conquer the last wilderness of the earth. Also, it was so much rich in minerals and also wildlife. So these were the reasons. And if we talk about the official discovery, it was officially discovered 200 years ago on January 27, 1820, when a member of the Russian expedition, he sighted a particular land, is now known as the Fimbul ice shelf on the continent's east side. Antarctica, separated from America 35 million years ago. And then what happened? After the movement, its climate started to change and it began to grow ice sheet. It's time for a prelims-based question. You have to tell me in the comment segment which is the world's largest ice sheet and where is it located, right? And of course, glacial ice coverings were also growing since then. And as plate tectonics, we know what are plates. The plates that moved, the plates tectonic, they started moving. Antarctica became colder and colder, and since the last 14 million years, it has remained the same. The frigid continent that persists till today. So, if we talk about its characteristics, we have talked about it being rich in nutrients and minerals, and of course, nutrients and wildlife, we know that, whales and seals. And it is rich in copper, iron, petroleum, but the cost of extracting those minerals is very high. This now we have already talked about extinction. How did extinction happen? And today the combined East and West Antarctic ice, they hold 90% of the world's ice, which is enough to rise the global sea level by roughly 200 feet, that is 60 meters. If all is melted, then you can imagine the cost Antarctic has to pay for rising greenhouse gas emissions, right? Now, if we talk about the Antarctic region, the eastern area of the Antarctic region, particularly this. Now, this particular region keeps on thinning as well as thickening, and it also contributes a lot to the global sea level rise. But if we talk about the more susceptible area, that is the western region, this particular area, West Antarctic, especially this. Now, this particular region, the Western Antarctic region, most of its ice sheet is below the sea level, which is much more susceptible to melting. And of course, if we talk about melting, the particular islands, the particular regions are Thwaites Glacier and Pine Islands. I am going to write it here for you. Pine Islands. They are much more susceptible than the rest of the area. And of course, we know about the Larsen ice shelf, how it has broken away. And of course, if we talk about the global sea level rise in terms of this area, if we talk about it, then till the year 2100, it is capable of raising the global sea level by 1 meters. And if we talk about the year 2500, then it is capable by 15 meters of raising the global sea level. So that is how sensitive this particular area is and why it needed a treaty for conserving this. So now we will talk about the Antarctic Treaty System. Thanks to this Antarctic Treaty System, that 10% of the Earth's wilderness is preserved. And this area, this Antarctic area, has been known as the continent for science, right? Because a lot of scientific expeditions take place here, right? And it has no permanent population. We already discussed about that. So the Antarctic Treaty System is the world's premier example of peaceful and scientific international cooperation. There has been cooperation under this treaty among the many countries of the world in order to have a coordinated approach towards how to conduct scientific experiments, how to share data, and how to thrive on it, right? And this landmark accord, it was signed in the year 1961, and it sets aside Antarctica for peaceful, you have to remember this, peaceful as well as scientific purpose and recognizes that no land claims are there on this continent, right? And the great Antarctic explorer, Sir Ernest Shackleton, he said that optimism is true moral courage, and the authors of this Antarctic treaty were certainly courageous optimists, right? Of course, you can remember this for your essay. Moving on, they were encouraged by the success of the 1957-1958 International Geophysical Year. I'm moving away so you can screenshot this. A worldwide program. It was a worldwide program of scientific research during which 12 countries built over 50 bases in Antarctica, including McMurdo Station and Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. Under the treaty, scientists from North Korea, Russia, and China can freely visit US research stations in Antarctica, and researchers from India and Pakistan willingly share their data about Antarctica glaciers. So in the comment section, the second prelims question is that you have to tell me who were the actual authors of this treaty, name the countries, right? Moving on. If we talk about India's expedition to Antarctica, it was in the year 1982-83. When India sent its first scientific expedition in the Queen Maud region of Antarctica. And the Indian Antarctic Program, this is a multidisciplinary program, and it also includes multi-institutional programs under the control of the National Center for Antarctic and Ocean Research, which comes under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India, right? And under the program, the atmospheric, biological, earth, chemical, and medical sciences, all of these are explored. Also, if we talk about its different stations, we will look at them one by one. The first one is Dakshin Gangotri. Dakshin Gangotri was the first Indian scientific research base station established in Antarctica as a part of the Indian Antarctic Program, located at a distance of 2,500 kilometers from the South Pole. It was established during the third Indian expedition to Antarctica in 1983-84. This was the first time an Indian team spent a winter in Antarctica to carry out scientific work. And the second one, Maitri, it's India's second permanent research station in Antarctica, built and finished in 1989. And Maitri is situated on the Rocky Mountains region called Shir Meshir Oasis. India also built a freshwater lake around Maitri, known as Lake Priyadarshini, right? You have to remember this, Lake Priyadarshini. And these particular names should be remembered for prelims now. And if we talk about Bharti, which was India's latest research station operation since 2012, it has been constructed to help researchers work in safety despite the harsh weather. It is India's first committed research facility and is located about 3,000 km east of Maitri. Bharti made India an elite member of the club of 9 nations that have multiple stations in the region. You can look at it. So if we talk about one more development when it comes to Antarctic, India commissioned its first ice-class vessel, Sagar Nidhi, in the year 2008. And it is capable of cutting ice as deep as 40 centimeters. Okay? By the name of Sagar Nidhi. Alright, let's move on and talk about, does India need to be concerned? India saw such a huge surge in the entire globe. Do we need to be concerned? The answer is not that much. Not at all, in fact. How? Let's go to them one by one. First, geographical remoteness. The stations are not very close to each other. The closest station from India is Russian station, which is as close as 10 kilometers. So, the two Indian permanent stations, Maitri and Bharti, they are at least 5,000 kilometers away from the Chilean base. Let's look at it. Here. Okay, this is the entire region. right? Moving on. First is that the geographical remoteness, not the proximity. And the two Indian stations are themselves separated by 3,000 kilometers. Also, there are protocols that have been in place after the COVID-19 pandemic. There were certain agreements which were carried on by the nations who were conducting research there, that no team of one country will go and visit the other team, which is not even possible in normal times, let COVID-19 pandemic phase. Okay, let alone that. So international protocols are also being followed by after the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, the Council of Managers of National Antarctic Programs comprising 30 countries, they had decided early in the pandemic to cut their team sizes, of course, and limit the number of people at their stations, at different stations. So that's not an issue right now. That is, the entire region is not as compact as we were fearing. And the US sent only about a third of its usual staff. Of course, it cut down its staff this summer. While if we talk about the British staff, British Arctic Survey said that it was scaling back its research. And of course, the research will definitely get impacted when a pandemic of that volume and that size will hit the earth. What can we do? So, and the other thing is that Indian scientists who usually head to Antarctica in November or December and remain there for a time period till April, till this month of April. And this year, no such group could go to Antarctica. So a team, the 50-member team, is supposed to head back to India, and they are already quarantining in the ship. And if we talk about the new team that is supposed to arrive to Antarctica and depart from India of 50, another team, it's already there in Goa. It's also quarantining. So it's fine. As of now, we can't see any potential danger. But there need to be some steps which needed to be carried on. We will talk about that also. So if we talk about the steps, proper precautionary measures should be taken, and according to the new strain that has originated in Britain, we must also keep that in mind. And we can take proper precautionary measures in the sense like makeshift quarantining centers could be made in the ships. That can also be done. And testing, of course, the more the testing, the less are the chances of other people being infected. Of course, WHO has been saying that since so long, right? And as the new strain has emerged, we have already talked about that. Accordingly, we need to change our tactics, how to tackle with the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And why not? Vaccination is available now. We can go for vaccination for the group, this very compact group, right? So, I hope you have found this entire segment informative. That's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.